In the Tissot Sprint brings us to the holiday hotspot of Italy's Adriatic coast on the Red Bull Grand Prix of San Marino. Ducati on home turf and the Bologna brand are hunting a 9th sprint success of the season over what promises to be 13 enthralling laps coming your way up live in Misano. It's time for MotoGP. So the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, we returned here back in 2007. 4.2 kilometres, 16 corners, 10 right, 6 left. The second shortest straight on the 20-round World Championship calendar at just 530 metres, which pitches you into the hard braking zone for the first corner. First sector, you snake your way through turn 1, then left through turn 2. There's been some drama down there over the years, in first laps in particular. Hard braking and overtaking, not spotting to turn number 4 before you build up to 6th gear on the sweep through the turn 7 kink. Into the slowest corner on the circuit, turn 9, before you hit sector 3 and the super fast high-speed turn 11, and then the sector completed with turn 16. Good afternoon and a warm welcome back to what is a sweltering San Marino. We're at the Misano World Circuit, Marco Simoncelli, in the heart of Italy's Emilia-Romagna region, the Motor Valley. Not only a Ducati base in this part of Italy, of course, but it's the home to Ferrari, Lamborghini, Maserati. You mentioned motorsport in this part of the world. It's a manic area. They love their motorsports. On Italy's Adriatic coast, it is a blisteringly hot Saturday afternoon. And we've already had some blistering hot lap times in MotoGP as Jorge Martin, for the first time in 2023, comes to the head of the grid. He starts the 13-lap Tissot Sprint from pole position after a mind-blowing performance in qualifying this morning here in Misano. An all-time lap record of 1:30.390 put the Prima Pramac Racing star on pole by nearly 0.4 of a second. Some superhero performances behind him on that front row as well, with the battered and bruised Bezzecchi and Bagnaia. Just 6 days out of their horror spills in the Circuit de Barcelona clash last weekend. Bezzecchi and Bagnaia, the reigning world champion, who's been the star, hasn't he, on so many Saturdays so far this season. He finds himself on the front row. A little nod there to Marco Simoncelli, of course, who was born and bred in nearby Cattolica. Whenever we come to this part of Italy, Marco always at the forefront of our minds, of course. This circuit was named after him in late November, in tribute to him after he sadly lost his life in that accident at the Malaysian Grand Prix in Sepang. The paddock is absolutely packed to the rafters. It's hard work just to walk to the commentary box. The paddock is so full as we get set then for our 12th instalment of the Tissot Sprint. Matt Burton, Lewis Sutterby in the commentary box. Simon Crafar trying to keep cool down in pit lane. Well, as we mentioned this morning, on an all Ducati front row, a record-breaking 8th consecutive front row for Ducati, led by Jorge Martin. But behind him on that front row, Lewis, there were some outstanding performances. There was so many start performances. It's hard to pick the standout one in this morning's Q2 session, with Danny Pedrosa, of course, on the middle of the second row in 5th place. But you have to give massive credit to this man. 6 days after that violent high side where he was run over by Brad Binder, pain in his right leg, pain in both of his legs, yet somehow Pecco Bagnaia finds himself on the front row. A stunning performance by him.
Yeah, stories everywhere you look on the grid for this Tissot Sprint. And Pecco Bagnaia, who I spoke to yesterday, almost winced just watching him walk around the paddock. So I can only imagine what kind of pain he's experiencing on the bike. We saw yesterday in first practice that they had to actually lower the back of the Ducati using the rear ride-out device just to assist him in getting off the bike. It's been a tough weekend physically for Pecco Bagnaia, but he's certainly gritting his teeth and showing his undoubted class as the reigning world champion. A 1:30.826 for him this morning. If you'd offered Pecco Bagnaia either at the start of the weekend or even at the start of the day a 1:30.826, you'd have thought, well, that'll be pole position then. But as it turned out, he was the best part of half a second shy of that blockbuster lap from Jorge Martin.
Nobody has amassed more points on a Saturday afternoon so far in 2023 than the Ducati Lenovo team star. 95 points Bagnaia has taken on Super Saturdays. That's 20 more than the pole man Jorge Martin. Jorge Martin has an outstanding record, though, doesn't he, on Saturday afternoons as well, the poleman. Here he is then, the record breaker. It was an absolutely astonishing final lap in that Q2 session, particularly his last two sectors. Sector 4, he was over a 10th clear of the chasing pack as Jorge Martin looks to continue his golden run. Top 6 in 11 sprints so far this season with 6 podiums. The smart money on the shoulders of this man, Jorge Martin, as he searches to try and cut into that 50-point championship deficit he now has to Pecco Bagnaia. Of course, the podium 6 days ago in Catalonia took 16 points out of Bagnaia's healthy championship lead, and he'll be looking to eat more ground into that in this 13-lapper.
Yeah, we used to become accustomed to seeing Jorge Martin on pole position. He used to be the king of qualifying, but it's his first pole position of the season, his 10th in MotoGP. And we saw in Barcelona how quick he was off the line, so he'll certainly be confident of getting to the first corner first, although it is a much shorter run this time than it was in Barcelona. Marco Bezzecchi has plenty of support to try and help him push through the pain barrier this afternoon. You can see the strapping there on his left hand and on his thumb, a legacy of that first corner crash on Sunday of last weekend in Barcelona. But Bezzecchi has been as impressive as Bagnaia through this weekend. A 130.7 for the Muni VR46 man this morning, completing that all Ducati front row. And Bezzecchi will certainly feel he's got an answer for Jorge Martin in this upcoming sprint.
Trying to get themselves an invitation to the Prima Pramac Ducati carriage with the poleman Jorge Martin. Marco Bezzecchi's 4th front row of the season, 3 in the last 5, and of course he made a lightning start to his home Grand Prix here yesterday when he set a new all-time lap record at the end of practice, which meant he led the way on Friday. But he had nothing for this man. Absolute brilliance from Jorge Martin. As you mentioned, 50 points then adrift of Pecco Bagnaia in the World Championship. He's been so good off the line with the new Ducati start and the new Ducati clutch. He's been so good of late. The first non-factory team since we came back here in 2007. The first non-factory rider to have a pole position in Misano is Jorge Martin. 4th consecutive race that Ducati have taken top spot in qualifying here in Misano. With all the Ducati front row, I suppose the big question is, we've got 40 intense racing laps coming up over the next 24 hours or so. It's how long Bezzecchi and Bagnaia can hang in there with the pain that they're going to encounter. You feel like their probably best chance of beating Martin and getting on the podium will be in this shortened 13-lap sprint, because tomorrow, 27 laps, and we're expecting scorching hot temperatures as well. Both Bagnaia and Bezzecchi have said, for the time attacks, over the short bursts of 2 or 3 laps, no problem. Over the full race distance of 27 laps, big problem. Could be a tough one tomorrow afternoon for Bez and Bagnaia, so they might be looking to cash in this afternoon. Punishing
Conditions expected both this afternoon and tomorrow. You can hear the crowd roused into a frenzy, and there's your reason why. Valentino Rossi, the 9 times world champion, is here to support his team and support his half-brother Luca, who's sitting there in the Muni VR46 box. Marini will go from 8th position on the grid here this afternoon. Marini has started from the front row of the grid here in the past. He's tended to go backwards, it has to be said, when we go racing in MotoGP in recent rounds. Marini will be hoping to go the other direction this time. Yeah, and the brother Lilov has been coming to the fore this weekend. Luca Marini on the eve of his home Grand Prix, signing a new contract for 2024 with Mini VR46. He wasn't really strongly linked with any other ride, was he? Although there were some brief discussions about maybe slotting in alongside Jorge Martin at Pramac Ducati, but Valentino getting the business done very rapidly in the last week, signing Marco Bezzecchi and Luca Marini on contracts for next season. Of course, Luca made his Grand Prix debut here back in 2013, 10 years ago. Time flies, doesn't it, when you're having fun? And talk about blast from the past and rolling back the years. Dani Pedrosa, the wild card on the factory KTM, 5th place on the grid. His best qualifying since he was on the front row at his home race at the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez back in 2018. This is just his 3rd Grand Prix weekend since he hung up his leathers as a full-time rider back in 2018. But as he mentioned, it's like a trapped in a time machine yesterday, wasn't it, when he was tracking, when he was riding around with Marc Marquez. Great to see, though, Dani Pedrosa. He's the top KTM qualifier, with Brad Binder starting at the head of the 3rd row of the grid. Fantastic to see, though. 37 years of age, Lewis. His 298th Grand Prix weekend, and there's still some of the old magic and the old fire there as well. Certainly is, and if you ask the riders up and down the field, they're expecting big things from Dani Pedrosa here this afternoon, running an eye-catching chassis on board that KTM, a carbon chassis that they've brought for the wildcard entrant this weekend, but Dani Pedrosa will certainly be a real threat. Of course, he's got absolutely nothing to lose, of course, as a wildcard here this weekend. And it has been a story of the wildcard wonders here in Misano, because we've got 3 of them out on track. Michele Pirro, who was quickest yesterday morning in free practice 1, he'll go from 14th on the grid. And Stefan Bradl, one of the low-key performances of Q1 earlier on today, managing to qualify 15th on the grid and 5th in Q1, ahead of Taka Nakagami and Joan Mir on the grid for this sprint this afternoon.
Pedrosa has tasted race-winning Prosecco here in Misano previously. 6 podiums he has in MotoGP, including wins in 2010 and in 2016. That win from 8th place 7 years ago in 16. Well, that was the 8th different rider, 8th different winner in 8 races in that incredible spell we had 7 years ago. Can he, though, find his way to the sprint podium? It's been a good weekend all round for Pedrosa, getting in key information on that new carbon fibre chassis. He was 6th yesterday morning, 3rd at the end of play yesterday. He'd have never lapped faster than what he has done this weekend in many of his previous starts here in Misano. Keep an eye on then Pedrosa, 5th place. He goes behind this man, Maverick Vinales. 2 years ago, almost to the day that he made his debut in a test behind closed doors for the factory Aprilia team. 4th, maybe expected a little bit more, but he leads the Aprilia charge on home soil from 4th place. But one man created all the headlines, didn't he, this morning with that record-breaking lap of 1:33.90. Contrasting fortunes for Pramac Racing, with Johan Zarco struggling down in 16th place on the grid. It's all eyes on the man going from pole, Jorge Martin. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts from his team manager, Gino Borsoi. He's with Simon. Good afternoon, guys.
Yeah, good afternoon. A hot afternoon on the grid. Gino, your Pramac machine looks beautiful in pole position, really does. But Jorge wasn't just spectacular in the one-off lap, you know, in qualifying. His pace every time he went out on both soft and medium was like really threatening, you know, when you're looking at it from opposition's point of view. Please give us your thoughts.
Well, of course, we are so happy about the qualifying, especially because he showed an incredible speed sector 3 and sector 4, where he gained a lot and where he gained everything, I can say. But also we are so happy because the pace of this morning was good. The feeling with the bike is perfect. So compared to last few seasons, he is another rider here. He loved this bike. At the moment, he loved the setup. So I think we are in a good condition for fighting.
And please give us your thoughts for the Zarco fans on Johan. How's he feeling going into this one?
Well, for sure, it was not the perfect qualifying for him. He got a few yellow flag. He missed the chance to make a better lap time, and this is one of the reasons why he started from the back. He's struggling a lot, honestly, on the front feeling. Maybe for the race, we have found something. Let's see after the race. Anyway, sprint race is difficult to overtake, especially here in Misano. So let's see. Maybe tomorrow will be better for him, because sprint race overtake here, it's so hard.
Gino, thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks to Gino Borsoi from Prima Pramac Racing. Yeah, his boys almost opposite ends of the grid, aren't they, with Martin on pole. Just to give an indication of how tough it's been so far for 33-year-old Frenchman Zarco. It's only the 2nd time in his last 50 Grand Prix starts he's qualified outside the top 10. So it has been a poor weekend, struggling with the front then. Is there going to be some crumb of comfort here in Misano for Zarco as he tries to fight his way through from a very, very lowly grid position?
We can take a look at the grid now with Jorge Martin on pole position from Marco Bezzecchi and Pecco Bagnaia. Maverick Vinales leading the charge after the Ducatis from 4th. Dani Pedrosa a superb 5th, and Aleix Espargaro 6th. All 6, as you can see, on the hard front, soft rear combination. It's also true of the next 2 rows, with Brad Binder 7th from Luca Marini and Marc Marquez, the sole Honda through to Q2. Miguel Oliveira 10th up to going through Q1 with Alex Marquez and Ralph Fernandez alongside. That's the best qualifying of Ralph Fernandez MotoGP career. Fabio Quartararo narrowly missing out on a place in Q2. 13th for him from the wildcards of Michele Pirro and Stefan Bradl. Johan Zarco will start 16th from Augusto Fernandez and Jack Miller, who had a miserable morning in Q1. Frankie Morbidelli goes from 19th ahead of Taka Nakagami and Fabio Di Gianantonio. Joan Mir and Pol Espargaro complete your grid. Pol Espargaro crashed twice in Q1. No Takumi Takahashi, who was due to replace the Engine Alex Rins. He failed to qualify.
So a massive weekend, of course, for Muni VR46 Ducati. The boss is here, the greatest of all time, Valentino Rossi, is watching on from trackside. Marco Bezzecchi on the front row. Luca Marini going from 8th place on the grid. There is Valentino Rossi actually on the grid having a chat with some TV networks. Let's get some thoughts of their team manager, Pablo Nieto, who's with Simon.
Pablo, your young rider Marco Bezzecchi's really impressed everyone regularly since he's been in MotoGP, and again today injured, second on the grid. But how is his condition, you know, the injuries going into the sprint?
Yeah, this is our home race, no? So we have a little bit more, but it's true that we are not 100%. In the end, with the injuries that he gets in Barcelona, it is the best thing. But anyway, at the moment we will try to make our best. It's going to be a hard race. Martin have a very good pace, also Pecco. It's going to be difficult, but anyway, we are here. This is the most important thing.
Thank you, good luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Pablo Nieto. Marco Bezzecchi, the 24-year-old Italian, and 4 sprint podiums so far this season, but in the other 7, he's not made the top 5, so a little bit hit and miss on Super Saturdays. As we look at a man who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt on numerous occasions, hasn't he? Dani Pedrosa. 54 Grand Prix wins in his career, 31 in MotoGP, over 150 podiums. Not his first experience of the Tissot Sprint, of course, because he got to savour it in front of his home crowd at the Spanish Grand Prix in Jerez at the start of the season, and he acquitted himself incredibly well. Started and finished in P6 on his one and only other Tissot Sprint outing.
Dani Pedrosa, as mentioned, has certainly caught the eye of his rivals. They're expecting big things from him. Difficult to know really what to expect from Aleix Espargaro here this afternoon. Of course, coming here on the crest of a wave after his double win in Barcelona on home territory. 6th on the grid, though, represents quite a result for him, given the way his weekend started. A high-speed crash yesterday in practice, which left him with whiplash following the session, cancelled his media duties as a result due to the requirement of rest. But Aleix Espargaro managing to push through the pain barrier this morning, getting through Q1 and putting himself on the 2nd row of the grid.
Well, as a key member of KTM's test team, he gets to see up close and personal the brilliance of Dani Pedrosa. Not that there was any doubt, given he's, as we mentioned, over 150 career podiums in MotoGP. Let's go and hear from Pedrosa's test team crew chief, Esteban Garcia, who's with Simon.
He is, Esteban. It's been truly amazing what you, the test team, and Danny have achieved coming into this wild card. Can you give us your thoughts, what you think is possible for Danny today?
Well, everything is possible, no, with Danny. The important thing will be the first 3 corners, no? And then let's see. I think if he could keep between 5th to 4th position in the first part of the race, I think we can do something interesting today.
And can you give us your thoughts as a crew chief? What are the difficulties today to manage? Like heat, temperature, tyre wear, wind?
As you know, we have a lot of factors, pressures. Also, we have this yellow card also now in the middle, no? It's not easy. The temperature also is higher today. And, okay, we will try to manage everything.
Thank you and best of luck.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Esteban Garcia. Yeah, of course, the result important for KTM, but you feel also the feedback and data that Dani Pedrosa is going to give them as well at the end of this sprint on the new carbon fibre chassis, which has certainly caught the eye. KTM, as we knew they wouldn't be. They're not sleeping, they're not resting on their laurels. They've had an excellent 2023 so far this season, but they want to close that gap to Ducati and to Aprilia, as we just saw there, Marc Marquez. Marc Marquez then starting from 9th place on the grid, his best qualifying since the Sachsenring. He got directly into Q2 with a big helping hand from his former friend and foe, Dani Pedrosa. But it hasn't been easy again for the Repsol Honda star. Then Aprilia, well, they had a dream double, didn't they, last weekend in Barcelona? Maverick Vinales and Aleix Espargaro together on the sprint podium, together on the Grand Prix podium as well, with a memorable 1-2. Let's get some pre-sprint thoughts on his boys going from the 2nd row with Aprilia's Paolo Bonora.
We're pushing it, Paolo, because we've got to get off the grid, but really would like your thoughts going into this one.
Yeah, for sure. Vinales showed a good race pace, and we hope for a good start for sure, and for a good race. And this morning we found something with Aleix, and we improve also with his bike for sure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Simon. Thanks to Paolo Bonora. When you talk about Grand Prix legends, we've seen Valentino Rossi here, Marc Marquez on the grid, Dani Pedrosa on the grid. Well, there's another absolute, genuine superstar of Grand Prix history. The 15 times world champion, Giacomo Agostini, looking on. Will he see a home manufacturer and a home rider win this Tissot Sprint? Well, they've got it all on, haven't they, to beat Jorge Martin on that Prima Pramac Ducati.
Well, Miguel Oliveira certainly turned his weaker end around this morning, didn't he, after what looked a pretty dire situation on Friday. He was right down at the back of the field at the end of practice yesterday, but the R&F team clearly identifying the root of the problem this morning. Oliveira taking full advantage to book his place in Q2, joining his teammate Raul Fernandez in the top 12. First time ever this morning that we have 4 Aprilias in qualifying 2. Oliveira and Fernandez sandwiching this man, Alex Marquez, on the 4th row.
Of course, this was the home race. It is the home race for the Grazzini team. Of course, we sadly lost Fausto Grazzini a couple of years ago. Complications from COVID-19, and of course, never far away from our thoughts and prayers, is he, Fausto, and his team again running a special tribute livery. And while we're on the subject of tributes, of course, we should pay special thoughts and prayers, love and strength to everybody connected to the International Race Teams Association after the overnight passing of their CEO, Mike Trimby. As you mentioned, our thoughts and prayers in particular go to his wife, Irene, and all of the very close-knit crew. And there will be actually a minute's silence at 6 p.m. local time here in Misano to pay tribute to Mike Trimby, who was a paddock stalwart of over 40 years and who did so much to contribute to making MotoGP the great sporting spectacle it is today in